All right. I think we got everybody on. Let's go ahead and kick this off. We're going to be recording this. Everyone is on mute, so just in case you have any background noise, don't have to worry about it. As always, at the end, I'll open this up to all questions, stop the recording, and this will be put in the archive section probably about 4 or 5 hours after we get finished with the recording, but I'll send out a general blast so that you know it's there. All right, Telemarketing 101, just to give you a little bit of a quick background. Got off the ground cold calling, did that for a couple of months. Went to buy leads. We're talking about 03, where I started buying leads, late 2003. The leads worked out great. Unfortunately, around 06, I started seeing my contact ratios and closing ratios go down on internet leads. I was still doing okay with them, but it was going down. So I picked up telemarketing as a supplemental source. I just started making the cold calls myself. Got some good tips and advice on how to successfully do it from other agents who really were doing it almost as their sole business method. So I'm really passing that information really down to you. It was so effective for me that I stopped buying internet leads entirely and only did telemarketing as my main way of gaining business, and also hired my own telemarketers, and I'll actually show you both methods. First of all, it really is the best way to create business if you're on a limited budget. There's going to be no cheaper way for you to get business unless you want to go business-to-business cold call. It's a great supplemental source. Even if you're buying internet leads, that's great. This is a great way to pick up extra deals if you really aren't spending your entire 8-hour day working internet leads. The problem with telemarketing and a lot of other marketing things is that as we're self-employed, we tend to only focus on activities that we enjoy, i.e. selling, and tend to really avoid any kind of activity that we really don't like, which is any kind of cold calling, especially telemarketing. 2 points I can make is I'm going to be showing you a method where you only have to do this for about 2 hours a day, and you'll pick up some good additional business for the week. So it's not like you have to make your whole day into telemarketing. And the second thing is if you have some funds available, I'll show you how to hire your own telemarketers, where you're going to get $5 to $6 leads exclusive. You don't have to telemarket at all. Average premiums are much higher, especially for health insurance market, because instead of working internet leads, which tend to be younger people, most small business owners, when you do B2B telemarketing, are older and families. All right, let's go into the truth about telemarketing. It's very mentally difficult. That's good and bad. 9 out of every 10 agents stop telemarketing before 5 hours. Now, the problem with that is that it takes 24 hours of combined telemarketing in order to start submitting business. That's how long it takes to build a pipeline. So if it takes 24 hours to build a pipeline, but 9 out of 10 agents are stopping their campaigns before 5 hours, you can see the problem. People simply aren't giving themselves enough time to really settle in and get a little bit comfortable. And I will make one other comment. And this is personal with me, but I think it's relevant to most people who telemarket. There really was never a day for me, as often as I did it, where I woke up and looked forward to starting the calls. It was simply something I did because I had a business to run, and it was a great way to get good, solid business, actually the best business that really stuck on the books really well. So yeah, it was 20% of my day that wasn't necessarily fun, quote unquote, but then the other 80% was. And I think you can look at all other small business owners, and you can name anybody, from anybody who owns a restaurant, owns any kind of a retail shop, and their day is a wide mix of activities, some of which they enjoy and some of which they don't, but it has to be done. So we can get into a very dangerous mentality as agents to only concentrate on things that we enjoy doing and disregard things we don't enjoy doing, and then you basically don't have a business. Manually dialing, I would avoid it. I tried it, really doesn't work. Don't really know who it's worked for, and it's really just based on math. Using an auto dialer, dialing 100 dials per hour is really what it takes to generate a deal and takes to generate some leads. If you're manually dialing, you can do about 40 numbers per hour, which means it's going to take you 8 hours to land one deal. Well, if all you're really going to do is 2 hours a day of telemarketing, which again is kind of recommended, maybe 3, mentally it's going to seem literally like you worked the entire week to land one deal, and it really doesn't seem worth it. With the method I'm going to show you, you can land 3 or 4 deals with an auto dialer. Also, manually, there's a really big psychological component to stopping. Every time you have to take your finger and manually dial that next number, you almost have to start mentally over and over and over again to kind of psych yourself up to continue to make those calls manually. And it's just not going to work. It's not even human nature. But with an auto dialer, you can sit back in your office chair with a nice headset, and it just cranks out the numbers automatically until somebody picks up the phone. That's a very psychologically easy way to work, where you just let the system go until you're finished your campaign for the day. The math on auto dialers: a good auto dialer is going to be $100 to $150 a month with no per minute charges. I would watch what I would consider cheap auto dialers. Things are cheap for a reason, and I think you're going to find out why if you sign up with one of these services that are very inexpensive. They're typically voice over internet protocol, and there's a lot of problems. I don't want to go too much on this. Bad quality, dropped calls. You don't hear the first hello. So when the person answers and says hello, you don't hear that. You may hear it after the third hello, but by that time, they've hung up. You want really a state-of-the-art dialing system. So when that person picks up the phone, within a millisecond, you're on the phone with them. And again, $1 to $150 a month is what I would look to spend for something like that. Then you need a list. And you can get a list pretty much anywhere. There are a lot of places that you can go to get data lists. Remember, you're not looking for a mailing list. You're looking for a list to call. So make sure the per record charge is pretty cheap. You know, you're looking for 2, 3, 4 cents a record, possibly 5. If you stumble onto lists that want 10 cents per record, you're going to want to back off that, because the reason they're charging that much for lists is because that's mainly designed for mailing. Okay, so you can get a list for around 3,000 records for around $60. Okay. And you can figure out, by the way, what you need by working the math backwards. So if you're going to dial 2 hours a day at 100 numbers per hour, that's 200 records that you need per day. And then just figure out how often you're going to telemarket that month, and you'll know what kind of list size you're going to need. Again, with more of the math, you should be landing 1 client per every 3 hours of calling, assuming you're dialing 300 numbers. So actually, the better way to put it is for every 300 numbers you dial, you should be landing 1 deal. So if you can commit yourself to dialing 300 numbers a day, you should be landing 1 client a day, 5 clients a week, and that actually could be basically your business. Buying a list, more in depth. For health insurance, you want to focus on what we call micro businesses, which is less than 4 employees. There's a lot of lists out there that may limit 1 to 9 employees. That's fine if you want to get into a little bit of middle market or a little bit of what we just call small group. If you sell small group, that's fine. But if you really want to concentrate on only individual health sales, make sure that list is 1 to 4. Datadepot.biz was the source I used. And if you're looking for a free source, check out Reference USA. Reference USA is a free list, but you cannot export it into a dialer. You'd actually have to copy and paste the information into an Excel spreadsheet. You'd have to mess with it a little bit, and then you'd have to import it into your CRM. Then, of course, if you're going to call residential, make sure that you get a scrubbed list. You do not have to scrub against the DNC if you're doing business to business. But if you're doing residential, please make sure that you have a DNC scrubbed list. All right, making the calls yourself. Again, no more than 4 hours a day. I would actually say 3 would be the max. 2 psychological methods here. The either get it over with method, which means knock it all out at once, or it was my method where I actually broke it up. I did an hour to an hour and a half a day in the morning, and then an hour to an hour and a half a day in the afternoon. What I found is that starting calls right at 9 a.m. really wasn't that great. I know you can. As a matter of fact, in most states, you can actually start calling it around 8:30. But you're dealing with small business owners who are literally just opening up their shops at 9 a.m. and it's not that great of an experience. They're just getting set up for their day. I found personally that 10 a.m. was the perfect time to start making business-to-business calls. And you're going to want to start wrapping it up in around the late afternoon with business owners. At 3, 4 o'clock, you're going to see a lot less business owners picking up the phone after 4 p.m. Script, the elephant in the room. What everybody basically wants to hear out of this presentation is what we're going to go over right now is, what do I say when someone picks up the phone? I mess with this a lot. I use a lot of scripts that were given to me that did not work. There's a lot of 1970s sales techniques out there that don't work. And here's what I found that worked, again, for me. And you'll have to play with it on your end. There needs to be a reason to call. And a reason to call is not, I want to give you a quote. I want to give you a quote for health. I want to give you a quote for life. Or I want to give you a quote for senior products, maybe med subs. A reason to call is talking about something that's new in the marketplace that is going to interest them. Okay? For me, selling individual health insurance, my pitch basically went like this. My name is John Petrowski. I'm with Maryland Health Plans. The reason I'm calling quickly is to let you know that 3 major carriers in Maryland now have new health insurance products that could help you save up to 30%. Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, United Healthcare. Okay? Let's break that down a little bit because some of this is important. First thing I did not do is ask people how their day was, because that doesn't work and it actually is awkward. It's uncomfortable. They know you don't care about how their day is going, and it also sets it up that you're just a telemarketer. So if I'm trying to contact Scott Smith and Scott Smith answers the phone, hey, Scott here, I'm not going to say, hey, this is John Petrowski. How you doing today, Scott? I would say avoid doing that. Simply just go into your pitch. Hey, Scott, my name's John Petrowski. I'm with Maryland Health Plans, and the reason I'm calling quickly is, okay? So no question at the beginning. Then I name dropped. I name dropped some legitimate carriers in my state. And the reason I did that is because, especially for health insurance, small business owners get pelted with these discount plan telemarketing costs. $99, a month covers your whole family. Prescription discount cards, whatever it may be. But sometimes it's not legitimate name brand major medical plans. So they may turn you off if they think it's going to be, basically, the best word is, a scam call for health insurance. So even if you're calling for life, I would also name drop. Med sups, again, I would drop some big carrier names and make it legitimate. Do not lie during telemarketing calls. You're going to get busted sooner or later. So you need to find legitimate changes in your market. And I would say just over the past year, do you have anything new in your market to offer people? Well, of course you do. There's always something new going on that you can offer people. Whatever, especially since healthcare reform, for heaven's sake. Okay. Then let's get to the end. The end is, I'd like to get you the information. All I need is your email address. Again, there's no question at the end. There's no, do you have time for this? Or is this something that you're potentially interested in? And the reason I don't ask that question at the end is because it does not convey confidence. I'm confident I can help them. In some way, shape, or form, I can help them, and I know it. I don't want to end the call with, well, are you really interested in this? Do you really want my information? Do you really want to see these quotes? It just rings wrong with business owners who they themselves believe in what they're doing. So again, the pitch in a nutshell. My name is John Petrowski. I'm with Maryland Health Plans. The reason I'm calling you today quickly is because we have 3 carriers that have new products in Maryland. Care First, Blue Cross, Aetna, and United Healthcare. We could potentially save you up to 30% off your current health plan. And the only thing I'd like to do is get you the information, and I just need your email address. Okay, you can tweak that any way you want to tweak it. I'm just saying that was my pitch. All right. Once they give me their email address, I say, well, if you want detailed quotes, obviously I need your age. I don't want to turn it into one of these things where I always need more and more and more. But I need age and zip code, basically, to run quotes. Then what I would do is go to my quote engine, plug in the information, and shoot them out the quotes. So then they've received what I've promised them. and then set up a time to call back, of course, the following day to review the information. Okay. The goal on your first call is to find interest. You are going to find that these people do not have the time to go into deep qualification, especially business owners. Maybe the residential market, sure, they've got some time to go into a qualification. But I'm telling you right now, small business owners just don't have the time. They're legitimately busy. Don't qualify on the first call. Just get the interest. Once you've gotten the interest and you email them out the quotes, when you call back the following day at the appointed time, then you can go harder into health. What do you currently have? All that kind of stuff. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, we already covered that your tone definitely needs to be very direct. We could actually run a separate presentation on tone, and we probably will. A lot of this is really not what you say, but how you say it. If it's ums and ers and you sound a little kind of flaky, you're not going to do well with telemarketing. You really have to sound like you really believe in what you're doing, and that just simply takes practice. You cannot ask a question without asking a question by raising the tone on the last word. And boy, I know that sounds confusing. Let me explain. If you raise your voice on the last word, it turns a statement into a question. So and it works like this. Hi, my name's John Petrowski, and I'm with Maryland Health Plans. When you talk like that, it's over because you're taking statements and turning them into questions. You need to make them statements. Hi, my name's John Petrowski. I'm with Maryland Health Plans. The reason I'm calling today is... All right, submitting business. It's a slower burn with telemarketing. It takes about 1 to 3 weeks to close the average telemarketed deal. These are not internet leads, where obviously you've got some percentage of internet leads that are highly interested. They really do want to get covered relatively quickly, and you can move right into an application, sometimes on the first call, many times on the second call. This is not that. These are people you have contacted. You have cold called them. Yes, they may be interested and they may close, but they're going to take some time to look over the information, and I would give them that time to look over the information, especially with health insurance. When you start pushing, small business owners especially, is when you're going to see yourself losing business. All right. 90% of your business, at least, are going to be people that currently have plans, and you're going to be saving them money. You need to explain why you are saving them money, and here is the ultimate irony of this business. You can actually save people too much and lose a deal. It triggers their scam flag. So if they're paying $800 a month and you legitimately can get them to $4, just simply because they're just grotesquely overpaying for a product they shouldn't be paying that much for, their red flags just start going crazy, and they've just got a warning going left and right. So why in the world, how am I going to save 50% off of what I currently make? I know the other shoe's going to drop if I buy this plan, and I know I'm going to start filing claims and find out why it's so cheap. You really need to explain why it's so cheap. If you're saving them 30, 40, 50%, you need to explain why. Maybe you're moving them to an HSA, and you need to explain that concept. Maybe they've been with their plan for a 12-year period of time, and they've absorbed all of those rate increases. But now they're coming in at new business rates, okay? And because they're coming in at new business rates and they're going to be underwritten again, is the reason they can save so much money, okay? You need to put it into perspective for people, okay? And again, it takes 24 hours of calling before you build a large enough pipeline before you start submitting deals. If you cannot commit to at least 24 hours of calling, really, this is going to be a waste of time to start. If you come into this and say, well, I'll call for 2 hours and then I'm going to sit back and see what the results are. You need to give it 24 hours. All right, on to hiring a telemarketer and kind of winding this down. This will be the short point. Put it out on Craigslist. And you can hire people off of the marketing section, off of hiring jobs. Don't put it in the sales section. Put it in the marketing section. I would not offer commission. First of all, in many states, you actually cannot commission split. And you're not going to find a lot of good talent out there that's really going to work for you. And the only way they can get paid is when you actually submit deals. that's really up to you, and that's up to your talent and expertise to close these deals. So I would not put them on that kind of a pay. I put them on $10 an hour flat pay, and I gave them a bonus if they worked more than 5 hours per week. If they worked more than 5 hours per week, I raised them up to $12 per hour. They generated 2 leads per hour, which gave me at $10, $5 a lead, and at $12 an hour, it gave me $6 a lead. So where else do you go to get $5 or $6 exclusive leads? And even if they're only getting you 1 lead per hour, at $10 an hour, you're getting $10 exclusive leads. Your telemarketer gets the auto dollar, so they're the ones using it, but you still have management control over it, which is great because you know when they log in, you know how many calls were made, you actually know how many people picked up the phone, and you know when they stopped. So you don't have to trust them. You know how to pay them. So if they logged in at 10:15 and logged out at 12:15, you know that you're paying them for 2 hours worth of work. You know if they paused the system. You're not going to pay them if they pause the system for 20 minutes to go grab a sandwich. Now you're only going to pay them for 1 hour and 40 minutes of work. So you've got great control. And they also have the auto dollar, which means it's easy for them to make the calls and land sales. I also would not have them qualified. Exact same premise. They're going to run into roadblocks when they try to qualify. And if you're paying them per hour, it really doesn't matter. Just take all the leads they can give you, and then you can sort out the leads later. Okay. ROI, $100 typically returns 6. One of the best ROIs in the business for hiring out telemarketers. And, anybody here would buy telemarketed leads if they were inexpensive. They're among the best leads in the business, really. A lot of people are actually looking to buy telemarketed leads, but what you're buying is insane markup. You could buy one telemarketed lead for $20, $25 for 1 lead. It's really hard to convert that because if you're closing 1 out of 10 at $25 a lead, it's costing you $42.50 to get a deal. It really can't cost you that much to get a deal, which is why buying leads doesn't really work. You've got to pay for their overhead, you've got to pay for their call center expenses, you've got to pay for their telemarketer, and you've got to pay for their profit. It's better if you literally just do it on your own. Okay. Wrapping this up, don't overthink any of this. Just pick up the phone and just start calling. Don't get too wrapped around the script. Get something that is comfortable for you, but follow the principles that I went over in this webinar about scripts with tone of voice and not asking questions. And one last final tip. Scrub out the large cities. This is just a piece of advice from me. In Maryland, I didn't really, the Baltimore City zip codes and the Annapolis zip codes were really not pulling too well for me. They just weren't. And when I hired telemarketers, they were doing really well in the suburbs, but every time they would hit a large city, they would call me. They'd say, John, we've got a problem. I just went through 2 hours of calls in Baltimore City. It didn't really get you hardly any leads. They're explaining that is an entirely different webinar. I don't even want to focus on it. But if you're in Illinois, I would scrub out Chicago. If you're in Texas, I would scrub out Dallas and Fort Worth. I would go into the suburbs for calling businesses or even the country, for heaven's sake. And I think you're going to get better results. All right, that's the end of our presentation here. Let me go ahead and stop recording, take everybody off of mute, and I'll go ahead and answer everyone's questions.